Hi everyone, I'm Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you a video featuring the April Stencil of the Month from Spellbinders. I recently joined the Spellbinders Club Along live event where I shared several cards featuring this stencil. I fell in love with it and I wanted to create with it, and I'm glad I was able to do that during the Club Along. You can watch my tutorial, my segment on the Spellbinders YouTube channel and watch the entire club along, or you can watch just that, the stencil tutorial segment here on my channel. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be creating with the April stencil of the month called Airmail. It's a fabulous stencil. I loved it the minute I saw it. Sadly, I didn't have the time to create with it in April, but that's what's fun about Club Along. You know, we get to go back to the prior month and enjoy our products, enjoy our goodies, and create some fun projects using those. So I have quite a few card ideas to share with you today. Once I started ink blending, I simply couldn't stop. As you can kind of see by my stencil, it has some residual ink on the stencil. It's well loved because I had a lot of fun. So I have, I think, 5 or 6 card ideas to share with you with several different color options, color combinations in different ideas. I'm also combining many of the other April clubs from Spellbinders. They're so good. I couldn't resist using a few elements from the large die, some sentiments from the stamp set, and also a few other goodies. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So I have all of my supplies ready, and I'll walk you through the supplies and all the things that I'm using as I am making my cards. First, let's go ahead and take a look at the stencils. So this is a 5-piece, I believe, a 5-piece layering stencil, and you have 2 different designs in this set. By the way, this stencil is now available a la carte, so you don't have to be a club member to get it. You can just purchase it without being a club member, but it never hurts to be a club member. So I encourage you to join the clubs, especially if you're loving this month's clubs, the May clubs. They're just phenomenal. So good. So like I said, we have several designs. The first design is a traditional Airmail stripe. I will say that these stencils are sized for A2 cards, so they will work best on backgrounds that are cut for A2 cards. So 4¼ by 5½ inches. I have a bunch of panels that I have pre-cut. And again, these are 4¼ by 5½ inches, and these will work perfectly with this stencil. So we have the first one, and this will give us just that fun Airmail stripe. And this one is a 2-layer stencil. Now you will notice these little openings in the center. These openings, these little circles, actually go with the second set of stencils, and it's this one. So these kind of look funky when you see them at first, but they make fun envelopes. Fun little envelopes, so you can have a fun envelope pattern for your card. And then these circles, they create little seals for the envelopes. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. So let's go ahead and get started. I have a sticky mat, a grip mat, or a tacky mat that I'm going to use to hold my paper and hold my stencil while I do the ink blending. If you don't have a grip mat like this or a similar grip mat, you can by all means use low-tech tape and simply use that to secure your stencil and your paper in place. And our best ever craft tape, here I have mine on our clear tape dispenser. This works really well for that. Maybe I'll show you one of the backgrounds using the tape without the tacky mat, so you can kind of get a feel of how to do that. For my blending today, I'm going to use the Hero Arts inks. I love Hero Arts inks, and it's been a while since I used them. I used to be many years ago on the Hero Arts design team, and I used to love creating with the Hero Arts products, with the Hero Arts stamps and inks. In fact, if you go to the Hero Arts YouTube channel and search color layering, you can find some color layering videos that I did for Hero. They're called Color Layering with Yana, and Hero Arts used to have a bunch of color layering stamp sets, and I would film tutorials for these stamp sets using the Hero Arts inks. So these are not new to me. These are well loved in my craft room and well used. So for the Airmail stripe, I am going to do the traditional two-tone, two-color Airmail stripe. So the red and the blue, I'm using crimson. I do have the large fluffy brushes from Spellbinders. Here is mine to ink blend the background. You can definitely use whatever brushes you have in your stash. You can use smaller brushes if you want. The smaller brushes would work well here, but I love to use the large brushes just because it's super easy to pick up a bunch of color and apply it quickly onto my background. So this is why I am so fond of these brushes. They just make blending such an easy task. So I'm just going to apply a generous amount of ink using this first stencil. And again, this is crimson. So I'm doing a solid layer of color until I'm happy with the amount of ink on the background. I do need to grab my cloth, my tissue. Okay, I couldn't find my cloth, my cleaning cloth, so I'm just going to use these paper napkins to clean the stencil. I'm going to remove this first layer. Loving this already. Set this aside and grab our second layer. These are very easy to align. Like I said, these are sized for A2 cards, so you just use the corners of your panel to align the stencil. I have my second layer aligned. Going to grab my blue ink. This is Nautical. And I have my blue blending brush, and let's go ahead and blend away. I'm not going to worry about the circles in the center because I know I will layer additional panels here. So it's okay if I blend over them. If you are, however, making a one layer card, you might want to mask these openings so that you don't get the ink onto your panel. And again, you can use masking paper or you can use our best ever craft tape to do that. So let's go ahead and blend those. And again, I'm doing a solid layer of color here. I'm blending with a rather heavy hand because I want to apply a lot of ink. Make sure that I have a nice blue and red stripe on my background. Here we go, almost done. Let's go ahead and close our ink pad. Clean the stencil. Once I'm done blending, I like to take my stencils to I like to clean my stencils, that's what I'm trying to say, and I will clean them with warm water and soap. You can also use the Ultra Clean Stamp Cleaner from Hero Arts. This is the stamp cleaner, the cleaner that you can use to clean your stamps, but it also works really well for stencils. So I will occasionally do that as well. So here we have our background. Love the way this turned out. Again, disregard the ink blended dots. These are not going to be visible on the finished card. So our stencil background number 1 is ready. I am going to take my paper trimmer and trim down the edges or the sides just a little bit because I have a little bit of the white show on the side here. Like the ink blending doesn't go all the way to the edge, so I want to make sure that it does go all the way to the edge, and I can achieve that by trimming my paper. This can happen if your panel is not cut exactly to size. So if it's a little bit larger than A2, or if you didn't align your stencil, when you did your ink blending, you can have a little bit of that white show, but that's okay, you know. It can easily be fixed using a paper trimmer, or you can use a rectangular die and just cut it out using a die. So here's our our background is ready. I am going to set this one aside and work on a background number 2 before I jump to assembling my cards and showing you all the card examples that I have for you today. If you don't have a grip mat, you can use tape to tape your stencil onto your paper to make sure it is held in place while you do your ink blending. We have 3 layers for this next background, and I have 3 colors of ink as well as 3 blending brushes. And for this background, I'm using the regular size blending brushes from Spellbinders. The colors of ink I will use are Indigo, Paradise, and Periwinkle to have nice little blue envelopes for this card. So let's start with this. I'm not sure which one do I want to do. Let's start with this layer first. So again, you want to make sure to align your panel. I have flipped my stencil to the other side, and I'm going to use tape to tape the paper onto the stencil. I am not taping anything onto my work surface, so I just have the stencil taped, and you want to make sure to tape it. Otherwise, it can shift and move as you do your ink blending, and you always want to avoid that to make sure you have the best results when you do your ink blending. I'm going to start with the color Paradise for this layer and do a nice heavy application of this color. Maybe not too heavy, but heavy-ish, I would say. I will also show you some other backgrounds where I use different colors and do sort of like an ombre background, because there's a lot you can do. Even though this type of background, so these envelopes, you have 3 layers, so you technically can use the different colors, 3 different colors to ink blend these envelopes. You don't have to use the different colors. You can use just one color to ink blend all 3 layers to have monochromatic envelopes, or you can use 2 colors and have like a little ombre or a little gradient happening on your background. So lots and lots you can do. You can also be very detailed and specific about your ink blending. For example, here I'm just doing a quick and easy color application, but you could also take a detail blending brush and come in with the detail blending brush and add a little bit of, you know, additional blending around the flap where the seal of the envelope is going to be. And that is just going to, I don't know, drop like a little bit of a shadow and add interest to the finished background. This certainly takes a little bit longer, but you know, sometimes it is absolutely worth it. So I'm just going to take a little bit of time and add the ink blending. I'm not sure if you guys are crafting along with me, or if you know, you're watching live or watching on a replay later, but I surely do hope that you are enjoying this tutorial and certainly enjoying our club products, because they're so fun and they go so well together. So if you subscribe to multiple clubs, I hope you get to combine your multiple club products on your projects. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more detail. You can see that I'm picking up a lot more color with this detail brush, and I'm adding a lot more color onto my little envelope flaps. I'm almost done, so just 1 or 2 more flaps left to do. Okay, I think we're done with this layer. I'm going to try and clean my stencil as much as I can and remove it from the background. I'm going to keep the tape for now because we have the next layer to attach. So I'm going to set this one aside. And next I'm switching to the other layer with the flaps. The stencils are not etched, so it doesn't tell you where or how you need to align, but they are quite easy to eyeball. So you just go ahead and eyeball the placement like this. So this looks good enough to me. And for this layer, I am next going to go ahead and use the periwinkle color. Okay, I have my medium-sized blending brush. I'm going to apply this color just in the same way I just applied the first color onto the background. Now, when I'm ink blending, I'm loading my brush with the ink, and I usually try to start the ink blending away from the area that I'm going to apply the color to, so I don't go directly over the area. Instead, I start on the stencil, on the solid stencil area. I go in a circular motion and I slowly bring the color onto the open area. I know it's kind of hard to tell because I do it so quickly, but if I slow down and break it down into little steps, steps that you can copy and repeat, this is what I do. So I load the brush with the ink. I can either go with a circular motion or basically like sweep in one direction to load the brush. I then put the brush on the open stencil area and go in little circles and bring the color onto the paper. I find this to be the easiest way to do ink blending. And I can always come back and apply more color, but I typically like to apply a little bit of color to begin with because I can always add more color later. But if I happen to add too much color, I can never take it away. So if if the color that I have blended onto the panel is too dark, I kind of have to go with it. You know, I cannot make it lighter. But if I start with a light hand and I apply just a little bit of color, I can always come back and add more if I feel like I need to add more to my background. So our second layer is done. I feel like this looks good. So let's go ahead and remove it. It kind of looks funky right now. You can't really tell what it is. But once we add the third layer, it's all going to look, it's all going to make sense and look good and perfect. So the third layer is probably the easiest one to align because you already have your two flaps. And you just go ahead and place your stencil onto the paper. Again, use that tape that you have there to tape it in place. And it is now aligned. Now with this layer, sometimes I like to offset it by just a little bit, you know, like by like 0.5 millimeter so that I can have a little bit of a wide gap between the different flaps. And that's especially helpful if I'm ink blending using just one color. But if I'm ink blending using different colors for each of the flaps, it's okay to not offset. Just a thought. So if you are, you will see a little bit of an offset on some of my backgrounds later. Okay, I think I'm a little bit lost with the colors that I'm using. I think for this one, we need to use the indigo because we just used the periwinkle and we used the paradise before. So I have my third blending brush and let's go ahead and finish this background. Yes, so for these, for this part of the envelopes, I'm using the darkest blue. And I'm also going to use red for the little envelope seal. I kind of like the blue and red color combination. You know, it's kind of classic and very bold and striking, and I don't know, I feel inspired by these colors today. Okay, so blending away. As I'm blending, I am curious to learn what are your favorite clubs for April 2025. If you can let me know in the comments, that'd be fantastic. And if you guys are watching live, I am in the comments there with you. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. But if you are watching on a replay, and if you have questions as well, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I feel like I want to add more color here. So I'm just going to go a little bit heavier in some sections. So here, as opposed to the background that we just did, I'm not doing a solid layer of color. Instead, there is a little bit of a gradient to each ink blended section. I could totally do a solid layer of color. For that, I would probably switch to my larger blending brush, but I'm not sure. Maybe I will. Maybe I should, you know, maybe I should. So I'm just going to grab my larger blending brush and go to town with this layer. I am applying a slightly darker color because I do have a lot of the nautical ink on this blending brush. I did not clean it, but that's okay. You know, I don't mind mixing the different inks on my blending brushes. I think that's all part of the creative process. It's all part of the crafty fun. And it's all good. Okay, this looks good enough. Look at my fingers. So inky. That's a sign of a happy crafter. Okay, let's clean the stencil as much as we can. Okay, and remove it from our background and check out this beauty. Ooh, love it. So good. Right? Yes. Okay, we have one more layer that we need to do because remember those dots? Those dots, they make the seals on these little envelopes. So let's go back to that stencil layer. Here it is. Oops. And position that on our background. Make sure everything is nice and aligned. Use that tape that you have to tape it down. Now, when you're going to blend this layer, be careful. Either use tape and mask off these areas because they are open, or use a small blending brush. For example, I have this blending brush from Spellbinders, the detail or the small blending brush. This is actually the largest one from this set. These blending brushes, they come in a set of 3. Let me go ahead and grab one pack to show you. Here we go. So they come in a pack of 3 and this is the largest one, and they're really nice for detail blending. So whenever you have small sections that you need to ink blend and you don't want to do any masking, these are your blending brushes because they will make the job a lot easier and they will save you from having to add masking tape to your background. But on the other hand, if you want to ink blend your background quickly, you can then spend a little bit of time masking the background. I'm just going to show you this real quick, you know, just for demonstration purposes. So I would then maybe mask those areas, but then grab my large blending brush and blend the entire background. So in this case, masking takes a little bit of time, but not too long, right? That was quick. That did not take a lot of time at all. And then I can use my large blending brush, load it up, and apply the color in no time. So it just depends what you want to do. It also depends on what kind of supplies you have, because you might, you know, we don't have all of the supplies in the world, right? I don't have blending brushes for every ink color in my stash, and I also don't have the blending brush size for, you know, again, every color. So sometimes it helps to be a little creative and use what we have. So if you only have large blending brushes, this is what you can do. With a little bit of masking, you can still use a large blending brush to ink blend this background. Okay, are you guys ready for the reveal? Ta-da! Ah, Looks so, so good. I love it. I'm going to set this background aside and let the ink dry. And once it dries, it's going to smooth out and look a little bit better in the end. Okay, I have another background that I want to show you using these same stencils, but a slightly different concept, if you will. But let me first quickly clean my stencils. They're not perfectly clean, but that will have to do. Okay, I'm going to start with this stencil layer. I wanted to say stencil layer number 1, but these stencils are not numbered, so it doesn't matter. So it's not exactly stencil layer number 1. It's just a stencil. Just a stencil layer. Okay, for this background, I'm going to switch gears and do a gradient using yellow and pink. I'm also going to use my large blending brushes to quickly apply the color. So I'm going to start with yellow and add this color onto about a half of the background, but diagonally. So I'm blending a part of the background using butter bar, and then going to rotate this background and ink blend the other half using ultra pink. Ultra pink used to be, and butter bar too, these used to be my most favorite and probably my most used colors from Hero Arts. I know I used to reach for them all the time just because they were so good, so colorful, and so vibrant and juicy and vivid. And you guys know me. I love bright and bold colors. Okay, so this is our first layer. Let me set this aside. I'm running out of space on my desk to set all of these little things aside, so you'll have to excuse the mess. I'm not going to zoom out. I'm not going to show you all the mess, but you can kind of see a little bit of the mess behind me. Hopefully not too much. Okay, let's position stencil layer number 2. And for this layer, we are again going to use the same colors and ink blend in the same manner, in the same fashion. So let's start with the butter bar at the top and bring that a little bit further down diagonally. Okay. And rotate this and go with ultra pink and repeat the same ink blending process. Where the pink and the yellow meet, they create a beautiful orange color. So even though we're using just 2 colors, we end up having a nice gradient from yellow to orange to pink. And we're almost done. We just have this layer left to do. It is a little bit too dirty, I would say. So I'm just going to take a minute, go wash this stencil, and I'll be right back. Okay, I have washed it. I have positioned it, and I'm just going to finish this background by, again, adding the butter bar to the top section, or I guess like one section, because we don't really have the top and the bottom here because I keep spinning this background on my work surface. And then going to add the same ultra pink to the other section. So there are 2 different ways to ink blend this background. You can ink blend each layer using a different color, or you can use the same color for each layer and just do a little bit of a gradient to have a nice and interesting effect on your background. So here's a look at our background. I love the way this looks. I love the way yellow transitions into a little bit of orange here and hot pink at the bottom. We do have the little seals to ink blend, but I'm actually going to skip those for this background because I'm thinking that I can use embellishments. Maybe I use sequins or gems or some sort of dots to add the seals. I don't know. We will see. Another thing I wanted to mention is you can also take your ink and go with a light hand and just add a little bit of blending in the corner. And well, not just in the corner, all over, to add a little bit of color to the background so that it's not so stark white if you wanted to. So this is a nice way to add a little bit of additional interest to your background. So I just have a brush that is loaded with just a little bit of ink. I'm going to lightly blend the background to have a little bit of very, very faint pale pink in the background. So here's a look at our background, and I love it. Okay, so we have 3 background ideas here. We have the first one with the Airmail stripe. We have the second one with the different colors of ink used for the background for each layer, and then we have this last background with just 2 colors of ink where I use the same color for each layer. Let me clean up a little bit and we will continue building the cards. Okay, I have the Perfect Touch rectangles here. These are not part of the club, but these are great dies for basic cuts. And I used the second largest die to die cut a panel from blue cardstock. Let me consult my little cheat sheet and tell you which color this is. I still don't remember all the color names, so this is the Cosmic Sky. And I'm going to use thin foam adhesive squares and foam mount this panel onto my background. The background I have already adhered onto an A2 card base. This is a side folding card made from white cardstock. And again, this measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I love to add foam adhesive to all my projects, and all of my cards are super dimensional. And I know this card is going to be super dimensional as well. So I'm kind of trying to limit all of that dimension by using thin foam adhesive squares for at least some of the layers. So here we have our first panel adhered. Already loving this look, this Airmail vibe. Next, what I have here is the beautiful Mailbox, and this was created using I'm trying to remember, the April large die of the month. It's that Mailbox, and it is just beautiful. And I love that different clubs always go so well together within 1 month. So if you're just a subscriber to the Stencil of the month, you can be sure that there are other clubs for that month that will match and coordinate and enhance the other club products. And I really love that about Spellbinders. So for the Mailbox, I used Poppy and also Fog cardstock. So this kind of looks like white, but it actually is not white. It is Fog. I wanted to have a little bit of a different color here, so I went with Fog. I'm just going to use a little bit of glue to adhere the 2 layers together. So I have the top layer. I used the decorative insert for the top layer. And this one's cut from Fog. And then the background layer is cut from Poppy. And that one is just there. It's only showing through in a few sections. You can see that you can see a little bit of that red here, and then a little bit of that red here as well. I also die cut. I'm going to set up some magnets on top while the glue is drying and while I keep talking. So I also created envelopes. These envelopes are from the same large die of the month. And I'm going to tuck some of the envelopes inside my Mailbox just to add interest. I've added a thin foam adhesive square from the back here because I want these to be popped up. Not too much, but just a little bit. Okay, I'm trying to decide how I want to angle them. So I have 2 envelopes cut from white and Fog, and then 1 envelope cut from red. And I have I've used 2 shades of red because I wanted to add interest to these. Let's see, how do I want to do this? Maybe like this. So I used poppy, and then I came in with pomegranate for the flap, just to have a little bit of interest added here. I also created little seals, and the seals, the die, this is made using a die. So that die is also a part of this die set. So the large die for April. And that is just so clever. Josie did such a great job designing the mini wax seal, or the mini paper seal, I guess. Here is a close-up. Isn't that fun? I mean, it's just so clever. Okay, I also die cut this little panel, and this says letters. This is cut again from that same fog cardstock. I have stacked two letters, two die cuts that says letters. I have stacked those to have a little bit of extra dimension here. And when you look at your mailbox, you can see where everything goes because you have little lines that are impressed in the background. And that is so super helpful. That always helps with die assembly, because if you are looking at your die and if you're ever unsure where something goes, see if there are any guidelines on the die, and those will tell you where something has to go. You can also check on the Spellbinders website to see if there's an assembly guide, or, watch one of our videos, because these are super helpful as well. Okay, so I have also the bottom panel cut from that same fog cardstock, and I have the little keyhole detail. Here I have a sentiment, and this one reads, "Mailing you a big hello." And this one's gonna go right here under the envelopes. Now, I'm not assembling the mailbox the way it is intended to be assembled, at least not exactly, because you do have another section that goes over this area. I'm not using that section. I'm skipping that to have a somewhat simpler looking mailbox for my card. So the sentiment, I started to talk about the sentiment and I got distracted. So the sentiment comes from the glimmer of the month for April. The glimmer of the month is a beautiful background. You have a bunch of envelopes, but I didn't use that. I only used the sentiments. So one of the sentiments says, "Mailing you a big hello," and I'm trying to find the other sentiment. Here I have one. It says, "Open me for a smile." So fun little sentiments in that set. I'm also using a double-sided tape, strips of tape, to add behind my mailbox, and use that to pop it up on my card. Like I said, I love to have a lot of dimension on my projects, and this is one of the easiest ways to add dimension to a card. So here is this card almost ready. I noticed that I don't have a seal for my little envelope here, so we'll go ahead and cut that one from white and fog cardstock and add that onto the card. I had to zoom in for this part. Hopefully you can see this a little bit better. So I cut the seal. This is what the seal die looks like. I cut this from white and fog cardstock, and I'm going to assemble the two colors, or the two pieces. It helps to have little tweezers or some sort of tool, well, tweezers obviously, to be able to hold these little die cuts, because they are just so small. I mean, I cannot use my fingers to hold them. I need a tool to hold them in place. And when I'm assembling a seal, I like to double up on the seal part. So I already have the two heart pieces, so I'm just going to glue the two pieces together. So I added the white heart onto the white base circle, and next I'm going to add the gray seal, or the gray heart, on top, like so. Oops, you can see it's sticking to my fingers a little bit, and then going to add glue and add this onto my envelope. So this is the exact same way that I created the red seals, by layering the pieces to have just, a little bit of a little bit of dimension. And that is a look at this card. I wanted to show you what else you can do with your stencils and another way you can add detail to your backgrounds. You can always emboss, dry emboss with your stencil using your die cutting machine and an embossing mat or an embossing sandwich. So what I have done here is I've taken one of the stencil layers and I have positioned it over my background, but I offset it. You can align it or line it up to be perfectly lined up, or you can offset it slightly to have even more interest on your background. So I intentionally offset it. I use tape from the back to tape it in place. And next I'm going to build my sandwich. So I'm using my Platinum 6 die cutting and embossing machine. I have my platform base. Next, I have the platform top. You can see that this has been well loved and well used. I do die cut a lot and I do use it a lot. And then on the platform top, you have a little cheat sheet here. So if you don't know how to emboss, look for how to emboss a cut shape. Embossing a cut shape is going to be very similar to embossing with a stencil. For that, you will need an embossing mat. This is an E embossing mat, and you will need an adapter plate. So this is a D adapter plate. So I have a Platinum 6 with a universal plates system. You will need that. I'm going to place my mat. So this is a silicone or rubbery mat. Then I'm going to place my paper and my stencil. So first I have the paper, then I have the stencil on top, and then I add the adapter, the D adapter plate on top, and just send it through the machine. It goes through very easy, no need to apply pressure or force. And let's take a look. The embossing is going to be very subtle. It's not like embossing with an embossing folder where you have a bunch of detail. No, this is going to be very subtle, and it's going to give you more of a tactile experience rather than a clearly visible embossing. But if you look very closely, you will be able to see it. If I flip my panel to the back, you can clearly see it, but I'm hoping you can also see it on the front a little bit. I can definitely feel it using when I run my finger across it. To complete this card, I have a few panels prepared. So this one is the same as I used for the previous card. So this is the Cosmic Sky cardstock cut using the Perfect Touch Rectangles die, the second largest die in this set. It goes over the Airmail stripe perfectly. Next, I have another special panel. So this was created using the Glimmer, not the Glimmer, the Better Press of the month for April, and it was foiled, hence why I said Glimmer. So Better Press plate was foiled using the matte silver foil on the Better Press cardstock. So we have that nice tactile feeling here. And I cut it out using a rectangular die. I also added some ink blending from the side here, or from the corner here, using the crimson ink from Hero Arts. And again, I have thin foam adhesive squares on the back and going to foam mount that in the center. So I love using the Better Press plate from April. I love this text background. It's beautiful writing. You can't read it. It's not legible, but it's still beautiful. I love some splatter here as well. It's very, very pretty. Now for the sentiment, I'm going to use a non-cloud product. This is a sentiment from my Yana's Daisy collection from earlier this year, from April. We have a bunch of different sentiments in that set, and I picked one that says sending love and hugs. This is also foiled in that same matte silver foil on the same Better Press cardstock and cut out using a coordinating die. And I also have a little envelope. So this little envelope, it's slightly smaller than the envelopes that we used on this card. So this envelope comes from the April small die of the month, the one with the snail. That snail is adorable. I'm not using the snail today, but that die set does have a bunch of little elements that can be used, for other projects. So here I decided I needed to use the envelope to finish this card. And this card is super simple. You know, it's not as complicated as this one. It's much simpler, but I still think that it looks really, really nice. So this is card idea number 2. For my next card, I'm combining the Airmail stripe and the little envelopes. But for this card, I wanted to show you that you don't necessarily have to go with a red and blue color combination for the Airmail stripe. You could use whatever colors you want. So instead, I went with a pink and yellow. Those are the same Butterbar and Ultra Pink colors that I was using before. And I'm just going to add a few panels on top. So this is this panel, this rectangle, it's that same Perfect Touch rectangles. This is cut from the Wild, I'm trying to remember, I wanted to say Wild Berry. Yes, from the Wild Berry cardstock. And then I have another panel. This is with the ink blended envelopes. I trimmed this one down. This is the panel where I used the Butterbar and the Ultra Pink, but I did not add the subtle ink blending in the background. You can see, whoops, you can see these two panels side by side. Like I said, I've been doing a bunch of ink blending, so I have a ton of these panels on hand. I'm going to foam mount this one in the center. I'm using thin foam adhesive squares for all of these. And then I have a little sentiment. It says, just a note. This one is also from the Crafty Hugs sentiments from my Yana's Daisies collection that just launched in April. And this one is foiled in gold foil on Better Press cardstock. And I added a teeny tiny little heart here in the loop of the N. And that little heart, that's like a little dropout from the wax seal die from the large die. So this is a simple card, very simple really, but it shows you a different color combination. You know, it shows you that you can go with different color options to have a different look. I do have the seals still to complete. I skipped them. And I was thinking maybe I use some enamel dots. So let me think about that and I'll be back in just a second. So here is this card finished where I added enamel dots from the black and white set as little seals. Love it. I have 2 more cards for you featuring the April stencil of the month. So here's one where we use the 3 different colors for each stencil layer for the little envelopes. I simply added this background onto an A2 card base. I added 2 die-cut envelopes created using an envelope die from the large die of the month, and I added the little darling seal made from red cardstock. I also, for the sentiment, brought in the Crafty Hugs sentiments that I mentioned earlier. So we have thinking of you. And then I used the stamp of the month and the coordinating die also for April. And I created a little sub-sentiment that says, wishing you a day as sweet as this letter. So it's a super simple card. And then the last card I have is the one with the yellow and the pink ombre blending, along with a little bit of blending in the background. I cut this panel using the Perfect Touch rectangles. I foam mounted this onto a yellow card base. So this is a yellow card. All other card bases are white. I also added the hello sentiment, again, from my Crafty Hugs sentiment set. And again, I paired this with the clear stamp of the month for April. And this one just says, just a friendly reminder, someone is thinking of you. I also used the enamel dots from Spellbinders. I also use the enamel dots to add the little seals onto the envelopes on this card. So this is a look at the 5 projects I have for you today created with the April 2025 stencil of the month, along with other club products for April. I had a blast making these cards. You know, it's always fun to have some time, to find some time to go into our craft room and just create for fun and experiment with our products. I had a blast blast. Like I said, I had a blast making these cards. I had a blast combining the different clubs. I didn't do my favorite club video for April. Unfortunately, I wish I had time, but I feel like this is sort of that video. I feel like this sort of tells you which club for April is my favorite. It's the hint, it's the stencil of the month. I also loved the large die of the month. It's brilliant with that large mailbox. And then I also really like the Better Press because that letter, ooh, so good. So that's it for me for today. Thanks so much for joining me today. Love you guys. And I will see you again next time. Bye.